Barack Obama wowing the crowd, wowing the whole arena, which I wasn't there because we were preparing for this. I was outside the arena. But there were some people at the Free Press that were there, and maybe at protest too. Peter Savodnik, welcome, and Olivia Reingold, who decides to get very comfortable here. It's very unprofessional.
Shoes on.
Very unprofessional. These are not our couches. And you cannot put your shoes on.
I did think about it, but it's
comfortable.
Just,
They're very comfortable. Hard to do an interview in this, but Peter,
too comfortable.
were you inside during Obama's speech?
Yeah.
What I mean, we got a lot to talk about, but that just I was watching it on a stream, which is not really getting the whole thing, but it was pretty well received.
So
I'd say
Peter
that,
actually
right?
wrote an amazing piece for the Free Press comparing President Obama's speech and Michelle Obama's speach. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your piece and your impressions?
So thank you. I think that Obama played the role of, party cheerleader. We have a steep climb ahead, and our job is to, mount, the hill, and we will take on the Republicans. We're going to win. And it was very much sort of about kind of go fight, win, and let's do it. And it was very inspiring, and it reminded you of the 2008 campaign. And it was very evocative and compelling,
and kind of centrist in parts too.
Oh God, yeah. I mean,
like about regulation. You say talking about building regulations and talking about kind of the wokeness thing of don't be mean to people who disagree with you.
Nor did he talk much at all about anything he did in office except for the Affordable Care Act. That was, I think, the only substantive, thing that he accomplished that he actually touched on. Everything else, the whole kind of 8 years was kind of glossed over. And I think it was really, he talked about Biden and he talked about Kamala and about sort of, the challenge ahead. And I think, he sounded anchored to the, sort of the reality of, doing battle with the Republicans, but it was very, kind of optimistic in tone and very Obama-ish.
Yeah.
Michelle Obama struck me as much more, I think, sort of attuned to the anxieties, the fears of a lot of people on the progressive left who I think genuinely fear what a second Trump administration would mean, who I think, can't sleep at night often because of that. And she talked about her feelings of mourning. She wove together her weaving of her mourning, her mother's recent passing with this sort of feeling of mourning of the America that Barack Obama had helped kind of lead America toward, having been kind of abandoned or jettisoned somehow. And I think she did, sort of touch on or kind of in a way kind of address this kind of underlying, very, very kind of, I think, disconcerting question that I think Democrats frequently try to sidestep, which is, the election of Trump amounts to a refutation of the whole 8-year Obama tenure. And so I think, there's this sort of complicated, grappling with that she really got at last night, which I thought was fantastic.
But here's my thing, okay?
Yeah.
It was a refutation of Obama and Clinton. It was a refutation of their economic policies, which immiserated working class Americans. And yet, if you believe Michelle Obama, she wants you to think that if you have nostalgia for 2019 when you could afford groceries, that is like having nostalgia for the Jim Crow South, right? That has been the vibe here, is like that Trumpism is not like the return of the repressed, of the working class in America who has been put down again and again and again by the very Democrats who used to represent them, right? But that it's the return of some sort of racism or sexism, and they use all of this language to sort of convey that, when the truth of the matter is that Trump is polling at 40% of black men. Before Harris entered the race, he was getting the majority of Hispanic voters, right? He has put together a working class coalition that is multiracial and multi-ethnic, and that is the refutation of the later Obama years, no?
I think, to be fair to the Obamas, I don't think that Trump is simply a refutation of their economic policies. It's more yes, I think there's something to that, but I think it's more that, look, the promise of Clinton and Obama was the forging of this kind of liberal populism, and in both cases that turned out to be something of a joke, right? So this was about sort of recentering, American politics around a kind of a workable middle where we embrace markets, but we also don't allow, anyone to be left behind, and we certainly don't allow for the sort of the demolition of Main Street and all that, and obviously, like, Obama didn't deliver on that front, but then again, I don't know that he could have. We're talking about like these, huge tectonic forces that, I think if we're being honest, like no president really has any power over these things. But the reality, the political reality just didn't match the, rhetoric and sort of the promise of hope and change. And so I think, Trump was able to tap into the zeitgeist, the anger, the anxiety. I don't know that, we can lay this on Obama's feet. Just I don't think that we can, suggest that like, Trump somehow like rectified all that like, Obama or any of his predecessors failed to accomplish. So I think, I think it's a little more complicated, but I do agree that like it does amount to a kind of like a rejoinder to sort of the failure of like Obama's like, liberal populism.
Olivia,
Yes.
you're a bit of a stunt journalist these days. You have to put a helmet on for the reporting that you do. Why?
Yeah.
Like everywhere you go, I see a dispatch where there's a gang of people around you that look like they're about to beat you up.
I did tell my producer.
Is that happen again this time? Did you get?
I
You were
would
doing
say
protest stuff.
I would say I was harassed this week, probably once and a half, something
Yes.
like that.
You are very brave. You are very brave.
That is kind of you. These people, I don't know what they're capable of. Like, the most extreme thing about them so far seems to be their language, which really the next step genuinely would just be like, I'm going to kill you, like rhetorically.
And
they're
to be clear,
right
these
beneath
are
that.
the protesters.
These
right?
are, I
The
would call them
protesters, yes.
anti-Israel.
Or were you like, these are jokers who all they have is their signs
I did. Okay, so I know there's been a lot of talk about the protest that happened outside the Israeli consulate yesterday, and everyone's like, there were just as many journalists as protesters. But it's like, okay, you should have seen these protesters because they did not mean well. So
Was it a small group, or is that's a
It-
splinter faction of the, I don't know how many people, 1,000 people or whatever that were marching the other day?
Yeah. So how they actually advertised this rally was they said, if you thought Monday's march, which was the one that they were calling family friendly, was it was in comparison though.
Yeah.
But if you were satisfied, you thought that was a successful way to get to the Democrats, don't come to our rally. Like if you thought that we need to go much further, come out tonight outside the Israeli consulate. And so about 200 people showed up, dozens of whom ended up arrested. And yeah, they really are the most extreme elements, not even of the party, because these people, I was kind of surprised to learn that like maybe one man I spoke to out of the 2 or 3 dozen protesters I've spoken to since I've been here, consider themselves a Democrat. It's communist, socialist, Marxist, anarcho-capitalist, lots of variations.
There was a flag of the Hoshaist Stalinist faction, and if, dear viewers, if you don't know who Enver Hoxha is, that's going back a little bit. An Albanian Stalinist dictator that they have adopted.
Wow!
Yes.
Wow! Obscure. Good
Yes,
for them.
I saw the flag, and I said, "There's something off about
There's
that."
a scholar.
There's somebody who likes
house.
Enver Hoxha and Albanian Stalinism, but that kind of underscores something in a way. It's like these are just jokers, right? I mean,
I don't know. It was really okay. So I think one way to think of everyone focused about how many journalists were covering
Yes.
that rally, but honestly, the real content creators are the protesters themselves. It was like a TikTok content creation hub where they were like filming
I
videos.
saw
They were
that.
like,
Film your
imperialist
crimes.
pigs, imperialist
Yeah,
pigs.
smart people.
Basically with like ring lights.
Wow.
Enver
and
Hoxha never had a ring light, by the way, for the record.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, trust me on this
Okay,
one.
he
As
didn't.
a scholar of Albanian communism. Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know what you were saying. Sorry.
No, I was saying, like, are they kind of jokers? And I'm
they
wondering what
jokers?
everyone thinks
No.
about this in a way, because, like, you go back to all the comparisons to '68, right? and you read a book like Brian Burroughs' book, Days of Rage, which catalogs the hundreds of bombs that were going off in the early 1970s in New York from Puerto Rican terrorists, and like there were Croatian terrorists. It was kind of crazy. But they felt they were pushed to a certain point, that the revolution was around the corner. It would precipitate it if we set off some bombs. And they didn't have social media. They were just, and that happened. I mean, are we in a place, and this is an honest question, I don't know the answer to this question, that when you see some of these people that are carrying flags that have killed far more people than Israel would, I mean, in the existence of the country in an afternoon, if you're Mao, and they're carrying these flags, is it, are they going to be those people that get to that point?
I think they certainly are shock jocks, and
I got to interrupt you because Oprah's on, and we got to see
Oprah.
Miss Oprah Winfrey.
Pop off, queen.
Voting is the best of America. And I have always, since I was eligible to vote, I've always voted my values. And that is what is needed in this election now more than ever. So I'm calling on all you independents and all you undecideds. You know this is true. You know I'm telling you the truth, that values and character matter most of all. In leadership and in life. And more than anything, you know this is true, that decency and respect are on the ballot in 2024. And just plain common sense. Common sense tells you that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz can give us decency and respect. They're the ones that give it to us. So, we are Americans. We are Americans. Let us choose loyalty to the Constitution over loyalty to any individual. Because that's the best of America. And let us choose optimism over cynicism, because that's the best of America. And let us choose inclusion over retribution. Let us choose common sense over nonsense. Because that's the best of America. And let us choose the sweet promise of tomorrow over the bitter return to yesterday. We won't go back. We won't be set back, pushed back, bullied back, kicked back. We're not going back. Not going back. We're not going back. So, let us choose. Let us choose truth. Let us choose honor. And let us choose joy. Because that's the best of America. But more than anything else, let us choose freedom. Why? Because that's the best of America. We're all Americans, and together, let's all choose Kamala Harris. Thank you, Chicago. Thank you.
We are back. Oprah Winfrey doing some sort of show tunes. It's like, I'm going to ask you a question, Peter Savodnik.
That's great.
Coming soon.
I prefer it that way from now on.
I'm going to say that Batya said something.
By billionaires. I hate it. And this is something that conservative billionaires, they don't lecture you. They shut up and they enjoy their money. And these people know they should not have this much money. And so they lecture you, and I hate
Was
it.
that a lecture, though? She was singing. Come on.
No, yeah,
We tuned in right when she was saying, get out there, independence,
Okay.
this one,
I think it was
that.
the Pritzker thing yesterday, the tone deafness of, I'm a real billionaire. Like, no, dude, that's not how you do it.
That was a bad moment.
That was a bad moment. But Oprah Winfrey, a very, very nice person who I once interviewed, and it seemed very humble. And while we were talking, a person disappeared. And I looked around. This person got down and changed Oprah's shoes for her while I was talking to her.
Wow.
You don't
And
have you don't have a shoe changer?
Did they
I
have
do,
a shoe
but I had
board?
to, inflation. I had to let them off. But it was so crazy because she was talking about a school that she had and the African school, and I was like, literally, there's someone changing your shoes. Nevertheless, she was a very nice person. Before we get back to Olivia telling us if there's going to be a bombing campaign from the radicals,
God forbid.
not a ton of celebrities. I think they've done that
come
deliberately.
on. There's
No. I mean, you can,
ton
as a
of
Democrat, you could do
celebrities.
only celebrities. John Legend's playing tonight,
Right.
and the Republicans had Lee Greenwood.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good comparison.
But again,
Rock,
it
dude, you
begs
had
the
to be in
question.
the arena.
Yes.
It begs the
Hogan.
question, and I want to know what you all think about this. Why is it that all of these billionaires and celebrities are so heavily weighted on one side? Like, what's the source of that, Peter? What's your take on that?
I have no idea, actually. I mean, I think that
It didn't used to be this way. In the 40s,
100
Barbara Stanwyck was a Republican.
Sure.
That's unimaginable
the
today.
40s was almost a century ago. So I think it has been a long time.
But also in the 40s, there were a number of Stalinists in Hollywood, too.
Yeah.
But it was presumed a long time ago that if you lived in a rich neighborhood, if you made a lot of money, you were a Republican.
And
right?
now 65%
That's
of
right.
people,
That's right.
65% of Americans.
This is her whole thing.
It's my whole thing.
Yeah.
65% of Americans who make more than $500,000 a year now are Democrats.
Right.
What is each of your take on why that is? We have to get to the bottom of this.
Me. Okay.
You're on TV now, Peter.
65% of the people who make over. I mean, it probably has to do with the changing nature of our economy, like where people are making money, which industries are generating the highest paying jobs. And yes, please, you say something smarter than I.
Okay. Well, I guess first of all, maybe they vote democratically, but I bet if you talk to a lot of these people and really were like, do you want to be paying for migrants to live in a hotel indefinitely in New York City? They might be like, I don't know. So I guess I would question whether or not they really buy, the most progressive elements of.
See, I feel like the opposite. I feel like these people love paying higher taxes. They're so rich, and it's like an indulgence. It's like especially they love it when it's illegal immigrants.
But don't you think in private, they do break from the party in some ways?
This is true.
And
This is true. I mean, because there's two questions here: is what you tell people and what you actually believe.
Yeah.
I think it makes them feel better about being so rich.
Look, the Free Press, I'm sure, can attest to this. The Fifth Column can attest to this. The podcast that I do with our former guest, Camille Foster. People send you messages that are in Hollywood, in the music business, in the arts, like in New York City. Like gallerists, artists who are like, I'm on your side. Did they say that publicly? Absolutely not, because number one, there's the social cachet that you want. Number two, you want to work again. And I know people who have big businesses that are in New York City that they say, if I ever was revealed to even have one aberrant thought, I think I'd probably have a hard time.
But I would argue they're on your side culturally because you're against cancel culture and they hate feeling censored. But economically, you're a free market person, so of course they like that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if that's
why. Wouldn't they?
I think more the social stuff, the cancel culture stuff, was a real wake up call to a lot of people, and a number of people who did things that were in their art, which then they were punished for. But I think one of the other things is geographic, right? I mean, you see people people who become famous who come from more rural areas, who didn't go to Yale and didn't go to Berkeley and didn't go to Stanford, tend to have different politics, I think. I mean, I can't prove that, but I know people that are smart people, successful people, but they're from West Virginia, and they're going to have different politics.